Hi there, Glow here. Today I am going to be showing you the fantasy mini coral reef I made. And here's my jar. I've already added the, I used different browns and beiges of scrap clay. You can tell it's scraps because there's even some glitter in it, but I didn't mind. And I'm making kind of like the ocean floor in the bottom of this yogurt jar. And I actually did this back on Earth Day because you know what, I love coral reefs. I love the ocean. I'm a mermaid at heart, and our reefs need some help, so let's bring some attention to that. And here I'm just texturizing that bottom, make it look all scruffy. And I decide I'm happy with that. Oh, and here I'm making a rock. For one, because I want to fill this with resin, so I want to take up as much space inside as I can without making it look crappy. And I didn't want to have to work too hard on both sides of all my little individual pieces. I wanted something to stand my coral and all that up against, so I had the extra support. And I just started with a gray, a shape that makes me happy, and textured it. And here, this is the first time I'm using chalk pastels to really color anything. That's kind of something I really wanted to work with here, and I've just got an array of colors. I've got a black, kind of a dark olive, an ochre, and a white. Just, colors that seem really, really rocky to me. They're rocking, man. A toothbrush, I don't know. And so I just go back and forth, and like I said, I've never done this before, so I'm practicing with application. Do I like the toothbrush? Do I like the paintbrush? So I'm just building up those colors to make a grungy looking rock. And I actually end up really happy with how it turned out. I kind of I'm just adding some highlights with the white. Because rocks just have all kinds of different colors, and they get grungy. They got flecks of this and that, and pits and pockmarks. So I just go back and forth until I'm happy. And the white actually works really well to help blend other colors. Okay, and I anchor that in with some Bake and Bond from Sculpey, and that goes in the oven to bake. I'm happy with that so far. And next, I know I want sea creatures in here other than the coral, so I'm going to make some jellyfish. I love jellyfish. They're just so beautiful and ethereal and weird. Like, there's a jellyfish that can live forever. They're just so interesting. And it's like they don't have brains. How do they function? Like, I don't know. Just really cool, interesting, mysterious little critters. And I'm just shaping it around the end of my ball tool, and here I'm pressing it against my work surface to kind of create that ruffled edge. And I just want little details to make sure it doesn't look too bland. Oh, and the mix here I have a mix of translucent clay, glow-in-the-dark clay, and I have flecks of silver leaf in here. Just little things to catch the light in different ways. And I think the glow-in-the-dark jellyfish would look really cool. And there are jellyfish with bioluminescence. Now, I am calling this a fantasy coral reef because I'm not being terribly anatomically correct with this isn't a specific jellyfish. It's just a tiny thing that you can tell is a jellyfish. And I'm sure my coral isn't going to be terribly true to life, but I was still excited about working with it. And here I've got my little snakes of clay for the leggies, and I'm just taking my smallest ball tool and blending it right into the top of that cap, that head of the jellyfish. And I don't know how many legs it's supposed to have, or tentacles, but I just keep going till I'm happy. And I'm happy. And I'm not sure what size is going to work, so I also make a smaller jellyfish. So I have a duo. Good job, me. I'll use whichever one fits best, because right then I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to use both. Now I saw this technique, and I'll link it down below where I watched this video, to make kind of a fan coral, where you roll out a thin piece of clay, and then you just use your dotting tool and you make those holes. And it's really cool because as you make holes and stack them around, they kind of warp each other. So you get this really, really interesting organic feel that really does remind me of those like Swiss cheesy fan corals. Now you do have to be careful with it because you can run the holes into each other, and there are a few points where I kind of break it apart, but it's easy to blend together. I did have an issue that at first I made it too thick, so you really have to watch the thickness and play around and see what works. Because I tried to work on the parchment paper I had laid out too, but the clay just didn't want to stick. You have to have a certain amount of adhesion to your work surface. And see, that's where I broke it, and I just blended it back together. Another good thing about coral is it's one of the reasons I like working with more natural things, is it's not perfect, it's wonky, it's got texture, and it can get broken, and so like little mistakes just kind of actually add to the authenticity. And here I'm going in with some more chalk pastels. Oh, and the glass stays hot a really long time. I didn't, it should have been duh, it's glass. But yeah, the glass stayed hot a really long time. But I just wanted to carefully pull it out and make sure the sizing was going to be right for inside my jar. And for this one I used the white, that dusky kind of ochre. And I think I pull out red in a minute here. Now I'll tell you that I worked on this all day. I mean, I had hours of footage that I cramped down for you. So if there's anything you want covered better in a separate video, if there's anything you'd like me to focus on, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to go over it, make something new, and do a more individualized tutorial for a specific part, because I know this is a lot going on. There were just so many different little parts, but I think it was worth it. Yep, and there I went in with some red, and very, very carefully pulling it off my workstation. Nervous. And then you have a little piece of coral. And again, I mean, you could be really careful and work on the back too, but again, that's why I have that rock in there. So I could kind of avoid that for the time being. When I get more comfortable with the techniques and better at working with it, I'll definitely try to make a more dimensional scene. But for now, I'm really happy with the way things worked out. And again, I'm just going back with more colors until I'm happy. And I tried to kind of ruffle this or fold it, but really with as small as it is, and there's not a lot to it because it's pretty thin and it's full of holes, I wasn't able to really mold it very much. But in the scene, it looks better. And there's my baked rock. It's in there nice and sturdily. I like the way the ground looks. There were a couple bubbles, but the bacon bond saved the day, so nothing blew up. And there I'm just comparing sizes. I just want to make sure I'm working on a scale that's going to fit. And I super sped this up. And I'm just making... I wish I could work that fast. Hot dang, I'd get all this stuff done. But yeah, I'm just making a larger piece. Because, I'd rather have pieces I don't use. I'd rather have more than enough than not enough. So I'd rather make a few extra pieces and save them for next time, rather than like, oh shoot, I need to go back to that color or back to that technique and do it again. Although I do end up doing that. You'll see. Like, this is my first time doing anything like this. But it was a lot of fun. And I'm making seagrass here, seaweed. Because I mean, what's mermaids got to do recreationally if we don't put some seaweed up in there, right? Anyway, but yeah. I actually worked on this too long. I should have divided it up into 2 days. My bad leg was like, girl, what are you doing? And here I'm trying to figure out how to texture the seaweed. I go over it with my little Reiki tool. That didn't make me perfectly happy. So I just kind of dabbed at it with my dotting tool and then raked in those kind of veins. And I really liked that, but it was still kind of flat. So I went in with that dark olivey tone. My finger didn't do the job, so I came back in with a toothbrush. And again, I'm just sizing it up. It's a little long. So I cut it down, and I know I'm not going to want to make any seaweed much bigger than that. So that's kind of my guideline to making the rest of them. And I don't know why I raked first again, because I knew I was going to do that. But see, and that just gives it that ruffle. And then that gives it the veining. And I go back in. I think I used a yellowery one for the younger seaweed. Again, just another layer of dimension. Some more visual interest. And actually peeling it off the workstation helped give it a very natural flow. Okay, now here, I'll tell you where I messed up here. Because right there I'm using a scrap of orange to make the base for one of my favorite corals, brain coral. I love brain coral. It's so funky, and I don't know, it's just cool. I love it. So I'm making the base so I have something to put all those cool wrinkles and folds on. But I made it much too large. And I know better for now. I know better for next time, but that base was too large. I should have toned it down a bit and did more of the pink brain ruffles, less of the base. And I'm worried about all those ruffles falling off or cracking, so I am adding a little bake and bond. I can if I could get it open. There we go. Like I said, it's just the clay is Sculpey 3 is softer, a bit wetter than your Primo or your other higher level Sculpies. So I probably didn't need it, but sometimes I just want to err on the side of caution. And the good thing about brain coral, it's not a real brain, so I don't have to get real specific with lobes or anything. You just make all these fun, crunchy, wiggly, squiggly brain squiggles and stick them on however you please, however it makes you happy. Like happy little trees, happy little brain corals. Do 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 do. Rolling out brain snakes. Oh. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. And it was fun and sad at the same time, because Earth Day, you're kind of thinking about everything that's a bit wrong with the world. But I have faith we can do better. We can do better, we can get better. And we can be a little bit kinder to the environment. So we can have all kinds of happy brain corals and fan corals. And I super sped this up because, yeah. And it really just fleshes out really well. And like I said, it's a fantasy coral, so I know brain corals aren't actually brain colored. So I took a little bit of liberty with this fleshy color. But I didn't want it to be to blend in too well with the rocks or the ground, so I kind of upped the brightness on some of these, which, you know, altogether I'm still happy with. What was really fun was looking up all the YouTube videos. And like I said, coral's natural, it's not smooth. So I'm just going in and adding some wrinkles and nooks and crannies, because not only will that make it look more natural, but it will help the chalk pastels grab onto the little nooks and crannies. But yeah, looking up videos of coral reefs, oh my gosh, gorgeous. I would love to be able to go scuba diving one day, but I'm not sure if I can with my asthma, because that seems like flirting with disaster right there. Yeah, and I used the red to highlight the brainy attributes, the yellow to kind of bring in that more natural tone. Now here I am making an anemone. I made a snake of clay that is purple in the center with a layer of translucent around it, with a layer of turquoise or cyan around that, and then to finish it off, another layer of translucent. This is a technique I did see in another video, and I will post that down below so you can see the whole process. And this is the first time I've done this too, so I'm just trying to get a feel for it, how I like it. Go around and add the little anemone, all the fronds. With fronds like these, who needs anemones? Yeah, I thought about Finding Nemo a lot while I was doing this. And these are kind of like the flowers of the sea, so I definitely wanted to include them. And again, I'm making a base to put them on, and once again I made it too large. Yeah, so lesson learned. Next time I'll do better. Or actually, these I could put directly on the rock. That might have been better, and just kind of build them up piece by piece in the jar rather than making a chunk and fishing it in there. So what I'm doing, I'm just using my wax carver to make the little fronds. And then my ball tool, I'm turning that into a cup shape by pressing it into the base. And actually, the hardest part was making that, I don't think it's technically a cane, but making that snake thing. That was a bit difficult. And like I said, I'd never done that before. And you can't bake your stages like you can with other canes. Oh, and here's where I decided that I liked it double layered, kind of more ruffly. I like the ruffles. And ruffles have ridges, so there we go. But yeah, so I don't know. It was interesting. Definitely look forward to doing this again. And I was just, nervous because I wasn't sure how this was going to bake up, because I'm not exactly used to how translucent the translucent turns out at different thicknesses. So I was just kind of hoping it worked out nicely. Now I will tell you this, I had planned to fill this with resin, and I had my UV resin. I did not have, even though I jam-packed this thing with corals and all that stuff, I did not have enough resin. So, and I'm happy with that, so I set it aside. So I'll have to update it when it is completely finished. I should have put this as part 1. I'll put that in the description. And here I am making a starfish. As you can see, I am bad at cutting out stars freehand, but the clay is very forgiving, and starfish are pretty weird, awesome, but weird, funky creatures. So the arms don't have to be even. You know, you just pinch them out and poke and prod and play with them. And hey, that doesn't look so bad. So it's like, so you know what? If you think something's ruined, right off the bat, just take a breath, try to work with it, because you might be surprised. And I'm just making those cuts along the outer ridge to define the little leggies, the little starfish leggies. So yeah, give something a chance, because some of the best things I've made have been happy accidents. Just adding some little crunchy dots. Make sure it's got a very starfishy texture. That softened it up a bit. So I go back in and redefine those legs a little bit. Just back and forth. You play until you're happy. And that's pretty happy. So I go in and dust it with some of those chalk pastels. Because I don't want anything in here to be too flat. Especially because the resin, eventually, when I get that all put together, is going to kind of magnify everything. So I want those crooks and nannies and the different speckles and colors to be very apparent. And there's my starfish. I actually end up making 2 of those, but I didn't show you the both because it's the same process. And this, the first cut of this video was 70 some minutes, and it's like, no, thank you. Okay. Now, I'm not sure what this coral is called, but it's, it looks like a ruffle. It looks like drapery. And I definitely wanted to put something like it in. I saw, and again, adding some texture, some striations. I actually saw a Nerdy Crafter do this. I'll link her video too. I have so many videos to link. That's pretty much all I do with my free time now. I watch crafting videos. And I just brought my jar back to make sure I'm not going too tall. I was, so I cut it down a little. And this isn't a specific shape or size. I'm just... Oh, and I decided to try to put on a little color beforehand, because I'm going to be ruffling it, so I'm not going to have access to a lot of the areas very easily. But, you know, looking back, I wish I'd been a little more dramatic with the coloring. Okay, and I'm just smushing it to the side, kind of peeling it and ruffling it as I go. Yeah, I wish I would have been a little more dramatic with the colors, because after I baked it, it was just kind of... I didn't see much of the chalk pastels. And then to finish it the way I want to, I just curl that right back around. And I have this beautiful ruffled coral. And I hit the top with some white. And there we go. That was like one of the easiest things I've made, and it's one of the most, one of my favorites. And here I'm making, I liked the way twirling, because I was actually trying to do the really traditional, like, branchy coral, but I just could not get it to come together, so I scrapped it. But while I was messing with that, I realized twisting the clay reminded me so much of those, like, lipstick corals those tube worms live in. Really cool critters. And I don't know, I just loved it, and I wanted that shock of white, because I've got the warmer tones and the cool tones. I just wanted this contrast, and I just thought it worked out really well. So what I'm doing is I'm taking thick snakes of clay, and I'm just twisting it while keeping pressure on it, so I'm not lengthening it. I'm just kind of twisting it into itself and getting those spiral ridges. And then I'm going in with my ball tool and making the entrance, which is where the tube worm would live. Now, I didn't attempt to put tube worms hanging out of any of these, because I was worried it was going to be a little phallic. So I kind of left it, and I'm just making sure the sizing is okay. Because I want to get a lot in here, but then I want to save room for at least one jellyfish. So I keep going back and remeasuring things. And I decide I want a little more going on, so I make a smaller one. And I really love the way this one turned out. That one almost looked like a little cream horn. Huh? There we go. Oh, I decided to do one more. Like I said, this was back on Earth Day, so I've been working on this video for a while. I don't remember exactly what I did. Oh. Oh, and of course, I don't want it to be flat white. So I'm going in, again, I want everything to kind of be cohesive. That's why I keep going back to these same corals that remind me of that kind of grit that clings to everything down in the ocean, that mossy, fungusy, wonderful layer of nature. So I'm just going in and adding that extra layer of detail. All about the details, baby. And that's why it's so hard to step away from these projects. Oh, and I'm just adding some pink. Not pink, red, because it's, the lipstick coral. So, I thought that was a nice detail. But yeah, that's why it's so hard to step away from this project. Even when, my bad leg's killing me, it's like, I'm really excited. I want to see what's next. I want to see how this works out. And I just want to see it finished. So I'm going to have to be a little, remember to be a little kinder to myself and be a little more patient, because, yeah. And there's that. Ta-da! I really like the way that turned out. And it looks even better baked. Now just making sure all my openings are nice. And everything baked up. I decided to add the one starfish directly to the rock. And I added a trio of little blue barnacles. I didn't catch doing that on film, but all you do is take tiny dots of clay and then pierce them with your dot tool and then stick them to the rock with bacon bond. There was my brain coral. There's my fan corals. I really love the way that it needed some more color, but I love the way that one turned out, really. There's one jellyfish. Could have been a little more translucent, but I'm happy. And there's a little smaller jellyfish. There's a bunch of seaweed. I'm really pleased with how that turned out. It didn't darken up. I added some translucent clay so it didn't darken up. Not enough to make it look kind of gummy like the anemone or the jellyfish, but so it didn't darken up too much. There was the other starfish. There's my lipstick tube coral. And there's everything. Oh, and there's my anemone. I really like how the translucent clay. And y'all, y'all, I had like there, I'm trying to trim the baked clay. I really need an X-Acto knife. After doing this, I learned I need an X-Acto knife, and I need a pair of craft tweezers, because if you've noticed, my hands are small but chubby. I have short, chubby fingers and small hands. So, and the bacon bond doesn't offer you any stick right away. So it's not like a tacky glue or a hot glue or anything that gives you some form of adhesion right away. You've actually got to have things stick together. So what I ended up figuring out was that if you take a little bit of your Sculpey and mix it with the bacon bond, what you actually get is kind of like if you've ever worked with ceramics at all, they call it slip, where you water down and make this clay glue. So I kind of made Sculpey slip to help me tack everything into place. And I mean, I thought the hard part was going to be making all the individual pieces. And no, the hard part was getting it all in the jar, in place, staying together. And at first I decided to put those fan corals on either side, just trying to work out who's going where. End of the starfish broke off. But at first I was upset, but I'm like, you know what? Starfish are wonky natural creatures. They break in nature. It's okay. He still looks cool there. I'm actually, for a flash there, you saw me actually trying to use scissors as tweezers. And you see me in there chasing around the brain coral, trying to get it into place without knocking everything over. And I almost forgot about my poor yellow coral that I loved so much. So I ended up layering the fan coral right in front of each other. And again, I'm using coordinating colors of Sculpey mashed up together with some bacon bond and sticking things together using whatever kind of tools I can. And filling in spaces with seaweed. I actually broke the anemone. So what you see me doing here is trying to repair it. And like I said, the Sculpey doesn't hold things together right away. It really doesn't adhere until you bake it. So what I ended up doing is I cut some more and I made some more, because I need to bake this again anyway. So I made some more pieces for the anemone and used that to hold it together. And you know what? I'm ultimately glad it happened, because I just had 3 little tufts before, and now I have a bunch more. Well, not a bunch, but there you go. A more substantial anemone. And here we all baked. I will update when I get the resin and have this full of resin with the jellyfish suspended. I did figure out both of them fit. But yeah, I'm so happy. Thank you for watching. I know it was a long one. You hung in there. I appreciate it. Bye.